This is a quick demo of an app that I've built. It's an app for events teams in VATSIM to generate an event schedule that maximizes conflicts for air traffic controllers to solve. The objective is to generate as many conflicts as possible given the input of some flight plans from SimBrief. It takes SimBrief flight plans that are uploaded, and that might be a flight from Canberra to Newcastle in an A320, and it's exactly the right flight plan at the right level, would be normally flown. But what the app does is it adjusts the start time and the start time of other flights to cause maximum conflict. It's designed for an events team to create situations where controllers are challenged and pilots fly in an environment which is fun and dynamic, as they'll be having to be vectored around or moved around from their assigned route. Quick look at the screen. Up here, these are the XML files. If I delete them all, I'll start at the beginning. These are the XML files. You go and grab the XML files that you've got, and here are a whole stack of them that I've downloaded directly from SimBrief based on not real world flights that I've generated, but you would do real world flights. And there's a couple of odd ones in here just for my testing. But if I open that and 21 files are updated. The event start time is 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. You could change it to whatever you wanted. You could select put flights in or out or delete individual ones. But normally you generate a schedule and see what happened. And this is running on a Raspberry Pi just to test my the Docker deployment of this. So it's running a little bit slow. It does run a bit slower. On my PC, it takes about 3 seconds. But it'll go through these steps of extracting the flight plan data from the XML, looking in there and analyzing where those flights cross, and then adjusting those flights through scheduled conflicts to generate those conflicts. So based on that, it's decided that these flights should take off first. When a flight gets into conflict, it'll go red. These ones down there, I know these ones already, so these will go red very shortly, showing that it's been a conflict. I might have just missed it already. And for example, this flight from Brisbane is coming down. This is a 737 to Cooma, not a very practical route for a 737, but just for simulation purposes. And this is the front end. So the simulation is running at 48 times. If I sped it up to a bit faster, we've got this. This is where the flights depart down here on the bottom left. This is the conflicts that have happened. The red dots indicate where conflicts will happen during the simulation. So a few more flights will take off here shortly. Here's a good example. This flight's from Sydney to Merimbula. It's a Saab standard scheduled flight from Rex. This is a one that I got off the internet, a C510, which was scheduled from Goulburn to Merimbula. This simulator has decided that to get the best chance for conflict, it will schedule these at these times. And you can't quite see it there, but the aircraft on the left is 3,000 feet above, and it'll have to descend. It descends through the level. It's faster and will descend through the level of the other, and they'll get a conflict very shortly. But they both turn red. That's them there. You might have seen these two go red where there was a conflict. Now, conflict is defined as within 3 nautical miles laterally and within 900 feet vertically. At the same time, there's a conflict here as the flight's leaving Merimbula. Conflicts can only happen above 5,000 feet, so below 5,000 feet, you'd expect that to be on a CTAF frequency or whatever to sort it out amongst themselves. So the simulation for all those flights will continue. There's some more conflicts here in the middle, where that Brisbane flight's descending into Canberra, where these other flights is going from East Sale to Richmond, to military flight, and this one here is Malakuta to Canberra. They had a conflict. This simulator would keep rolling out more aircraft based on the schedule at the bottom left to make the most number of conflicts. Let me speed it up a bit to see a few more. Now, if I change one or two of these flights and took them out, it would change the whole sequence because it's the dynamic. It takes the whole system into account when generating these conflicts. So those 4 crossed there based on a flight. Those 3 would have collided had the ATC not done something. Similarly, there would have been a conflict that the ATC had to deal with. This is just a small section. The red dots are where the conflicts will occur during the event, and this is very concentrated just for this example on this area here. But if you wanted a wider section, you could introduce more flights out this way. This is for 21 pilots. Most events you would have more than 21, so you'd be able to extend it further. The other attribute of the system is it produces a pilot briefing for the events team to say, okay, for that simulation that just ran, you could get it to work. You could to execute that on VATSIM. Flight number 20 would have to take off at 8 o'clock from Brisbane to Kerma. This would be the route they would fly. This is the route that they'd have at this altitude. And similarly, here's the schedule that you'd hand out to the pilots to simulate that. But they'd have to follow that route at that altitude, flying normally as they would for that type of aircraft, leaving at that time, and most of the conflicts would happen. It's reported that it couldn't find conflicts with 2 of those flights, so you'd probably take them out of the simulation and try and find a different route. And it also shows a conflict log and when the conflicts are going to be. At 8:04, between these 2 flights, there's a conflict, both during the climb, and that conflict is at 5,600 feet. But there's not many conflicts between 8 and 9 o'clock, so you'd probably change some things and add more aircraft in and take them out to level out the conflicts. Because suddenly then there's a flood of conflicts between 9:19 and 9:24. There's about 7. So you'd adjust the flights that you put into the system. That's the only variable you can use is which flights you put in and which altitudes you choose, and you choose that in the flight plan, and then the system will determine how many conflicts you get out of those. And it goes down with detailed information. If you're the pilot of flight 20, 738, this is your route, this is the levels you're at. This comes directly from the flight plan from SimBrief. Your top of descent is here, and you will have conflicts. If you fly your route and the other pilot flies his route, you'll have a conflict with the -8 at this latitude and longitude, 95 minutes after your departure. And that doesn't sound right. 95 minutes after his departure, at distance of the distance apart will be 2.3 meters and 858, which is a conflict, and the phase will be in descent. And similarly here, you'll have conflicts here, and that goes on. So that's a demo of the system. Again, it's designed for events teams rather than anyone else, and you can put as many of these in as you want. If you wanted to click 2 of these out, it would make an entirely different schedule because those 2 flights wouldn't be there. The conflicts would be different to start with, and therefore it would build a whole different scenario. And these red dots would all move. Let's just have a quick look if or some of them would move because most of the flights are still on their original routes. But it's there to have a play with. It's built for Docker, so it can be deployed just with a single Docker Compose file. It'll pull down the image. All you have to do is change a couple of small settings in the Docker Compose, and you can get it working on your browser easily. That's all. Thanks. If you do have any questions, do reach out.